Hey everybody, it's me, John. Thank you for joining me on another episode of BrainScratch for today, May 19th. Happy Friday. Hope you're getting ready to have a nice weekend. Originally I started looking into another case to cover this week, but I was keeping up on your comments throughout the week, and quite honestly, I was looking for new news updates about Magdalena Juk. I hope I'm saying that right. Some people in the comments were trying to help me get that pronunciation a little bit better. I believe it's Juk. But I was really keeping up to date on that case, and you guys had some really interesting comments that I wanted to discuss as well. So I figured let's go ahead and do a follow-up video. We don't quite have the big information that I was waiting for in terms of true autopsy results, but there's a lot of people commenting about some preliminary results. So we'll discuss all of that as we go along. We'll take a look at a couple of new articles that came out this week that give us a little more insight into Magda. And then after, we will go through comments of yours specifically that I have cropped out to talk about. And let me just say that overall, I was really, really happy with the conversations going on. I know that there are a lot of very strong feelings about this case. I know that we get into some issues of cultural differences and religious differences, and some people can kind of make cheap comments pertaining to that. Other people can make very strong, smart comments pertaining to that. But I do appreciate that everyone was really focused on what happened to Magdalena here. What's the truth in this case? So despite the fact that we have people thinking from very different sides and different angles on this case, I was comforted to see that so many people honestly cared. And outside of that, I was also very impressed by having so many people that don't speak English as their primary language sharing their thoughts. And I really appreciate all the help that you're trying to bring to me and the rest of the audience to understand this case. So with all that being said, let's talk about some new theories that have been kicking around. There's been a lot of talk about flakka as being a potential drug that she may have been drugged with. There's also an interesting twist about a potential blood transfusion that she might have undergone when she was being treated for her injuries, which might make tracing the blood, tracing anything in her blood a bit more difficult to do. It might really skew any type of toxicology results that we get. There's also been several commenters talking about someone, I guess you would call him kind of almost like a criminal overlord named Captain Khaled. And some people do believe that in the video they are hearing his name mentioned in the background in the video where Magda is talking to Marcus. In terms of the news media, we got a story that Magdalena was basically previously held in a mental hospital for some period of time and that her family doesn't know about it. Any truth to that one in particular? Let's take a look at the current news stories and see if we can get any better insight into all this. Starting with what looks like a Polish version of Newsweek. We're going to get just a little more insight into her background. At the age of 22, Magdalena opened a beauty salon. I wish I knew how to say this. Zagorzalek, I guess. And by the way, I really appreciate that some of you understand that it's very difficult to pronounce some of these words when you don't speak the native language. And the real important thing here is that we are talking about the case and trying to get to the heart of that case. So I know there's some commenters that are just, slapping me around for not getting these pronunciations right. Other people are being very helpful trying to get me to get these pronunciations right. But ultimately, it's about the logic and the actions and things that we can prove or disprove having to do with this case. That's really what we need to be focusing on. She did nails, eyelashes, facial treatments. At the same time, she was going to school to finish up her bachelor's degree majoring in dietetics. So once again, just to get a little bit of a better understanding of what type of woman we were talking about here. Also at the bottom of this article, it notes that they had a press conference on Thursday where the Minister of Justice told the public about the fact that the body of Magdalena has already been transported back to the Polish. On Friday, it will be re-examined. So what I'm seeing in this is the Egyptian authorities carried out their autopsy. The official results haven't been released yet, but people have been kind of talking about some analysis on that. I'm really not sure where they're getting their information. One article I saw was referring to it being reported on a radio station. Once again, just not very good citing of where the sources for this information is coming out. That article basically said that she had no signs of any trauma to her body as if she had been attacked. Obviously, there was trauma from the fall, but it was very clearly stating that it looked like she had not been attacked. And I think they were once again trying to say that there was no sexual assault, but without them doing a proper type of rape kit. And also, I even just question the whole mentality of, well, if she was raped, then she would have been fighting it. There should be some type of, evidence on her body that she was attacked. I don't think anyone is thinking of that as a possible consideration here. I think most of us are thinking that this is her being drugged and then something's being done to her. So is she really going to be able to fight after she's been drugged? Are you going to find defensive wounds? I don't necessarily think that that is the case. Apparently Polish authorities were very clear that once they got her body back, they were also going to conduct their own autopsy. So we should have actually 2 different autopsy results that are coming out here at some point. And here we see an article from what's quickly becoming my favorite newspaper, if you can detect my sarcasm in that comment. EgyptianIndependent.com, and they were just talking about the fact that they had issued the proper documentation to get her body handed back to the Polish. But they're also stating here that, here we go, about this preliminary medical report indicates that the Zhuk went through a coma, suffered from fractures in the bones of her face, pelvis, and chest with a possible concussion. Just a little bit different from the other information we had heard about possibly there being multiple breaks in her leg. That is definitely not mentioned here, but it does still seem to coincide. It's not letting us know if the damage is all on the left side like we had heard before, but it does still seem to coincide with her falling and landing on her upper body. Tourist police indicated that Magdalena took her own life on April 30th because she was in a depressive state. According to witness reports, Magdalena was extremely upset that her boyfriend could not join on the trip. I personally think that is an extremely weak belief. Could she have taken her own life? Certainly. For some type of depression that she was going through? Certainly. But to try to add this information after the fact that, hey, we have witnesses, they're saying that she was really upset that her boyfriend couldn't be on the trip. She's hard to get on the phone, which if she was missing her boyfriend, you'd figure she'd be on the phone with him all the time. And outside of that, she's going home. This is just a short trip. She hasn't moved away for her entire life. I mean, is she really going to be all that upset? Yeah, she's going to struggle, I'm sure, with the fact that the vacation didn't come out as she was planning. But is that really enough to push someone to harm themselves? I seriously doubt it. And once again, I'm just kind of amazed at the way these stories are put together for that particular publication. Here in the U.S., we're finally starting to get some coverage on it. I think I saw an article from Fox on it, and we also have this article from CBS News. Poland's prosecutors say they are pursuing murder suspicions in the mysterious death of a young Polish woman vacationing in Egypt. And this is dated May 16th. I believe the autopsy was already done at this point. So despite the fact that we don't have solid information about the autopsy and its conclusion, there seems to at least be room where the Polish authorities are still saying that they think there is a chance that she could have been murdered, essentially. Other scenarios include a nervous breakdown or human trafficking, basically all the same situations we've been discussing. Details from an autopsy performed in Egypt are expected soon. Now, I have seen one publication that says the autopsy results from Egypt's autopsy should be released over this weekend. We'll see. I was kind of hoping that they would have been released by now, but that certainly did not turn out to be the case. We also, in terms of that theory about her being in a mental institution back in 2010, we get a little more clarification here from se.pl. According to our information, Magdalena Juk was not treated psychiatrically. In the years 2009 through 2011, she only benefited from the help of a psychologist as part of therapy for DDA, which is adult children of alcoholics. So very specifically, this had to do likely with some type of anxiety or depression stemming from some alcoholism that was going on within her family. Now, from the stories we're hearing, we know that she had at least one drink, I believe, when she showed up. Once again, it's very hard for me to pin all this down because I don't have great sources on this, but I am hearing from several of you. There seems to be a couple that was traveling, I believe they were German, that saw her have one drink in particular. I saw some other information which made it sound like she was having a glass of wine with someone that she was hanging out with. So I don't believe that she would have been put through an alcohol treatment program and then unless she was struggling again and had fallen off the wagon or something. I don't see someone that's gone through that type of program just casually drinking, which it seems like we have a few people noticing with her. And finally, a little more information on that. One hypothesis is that the alleged suicide had to do with her DDA being a child of an adult that was an alcoholic. And they have an expert that's talking about it here. And very plainly, the first comment the expert says is, I think it's too simplistic. It does go on to then talk about some of the difficulties that people with this upbringing have, but it also makes a really good point. We get a little more information here about her family. Magdalena Juk reportedly moved out of the family home at the age of 17. She moved to another city because of the difficult relationship with her father, who allegedly abused alcohol. Now, what's interesting about that is in some current publications, they're saying that it was actually her father that loaned her the money for this trip. So I don't know if that relationship might have been patched up since then. That certainly wouldn't say that she's still not dealing with anxiety or depression from being raised in that type of household. But it seems like her father might have had some issue here. And once again, the expert is saying we have too little data to put a clear diagnosis on it. And most importantly, there's no chance to talk to the person to whom this diagnosis would apply. But they're also noting that in their society, there are a lot of people that are raised with alcoholic adults in their life. And this expert is saying most of those people don't commit suicide. I think it's just a bit of a very logical conclusion and something we should definitely consider when we're thinking, is this something that's really likely to have been the trigger for her to harm herself? I also want to say this article has a lot of down views or dislikes, I guess you would call it, on the article. And when I looked through the comments, a lot of people are very upset because her family's in mourning and now there's this type of information coming out, her father being an alcoholic or something like that. I don't think that that is necessarily any type of statement that we should avoid. I think people are looking for the truth in this case, and it seems like there's at least one set of authorities that are really trying to push this story of she harmed herself. And if that is true, people are going to look to understand that, and this type of information is going to come out. That doesn't necessarily mean that this is a bad thing. There are some people that might hear about this aspect of the story. It might motivate them to change their life in some positive way. Admittedly, I'm sure it's tough. It's already tough knowing what her family's going through. And then to have, media potentially digging in and looking into their personal lives and trying to find this stuff, no doubt it is amazingly tough. But there's also a bit of a responsibility on the investigators of this case. With the type of popularity that this case has, they really should be pushing very hard to get a good definitive answer out, so that all the media around this case can be brought down to a more reasonable level. I can tell you, I've seen several cases where it's almost like there's such a frenzy to understand it that creates its own monster in terms of media around it. I mean, quite honestly, if the answer would have come out this week, I might not this episode would certainly be different, but now it's going to turn into 3 episodes because I'm still waiting for the official autopsy results. So there's just this thing that I don't think people understand about social media, where sometimes it can turn into a bit of a bear based on too little information being out there. And then things like this might indeed happen. Now, admittedly, this is a real publication that put out this information. This isn't something that was just, drummed up on Facebook or something like that. But is that really any worse or any less worse? If that information is being kicked around on any format. So with all that being said, let's jump into your comments. And before I start, I did want to also point out another trend I saw in the comments, which was many, particularly female commenters, talking about their personal experiences in Egypt, saying that men would openly grab at them, sometimes even when they were with their boyfriends. But there was also other female travelers specifically stating, I've been there, I did not have that experience. I think it's just important that we remember there are a lot of people in that country. Not everyone is going to act the same way. We're not all carbon copies of each other. People are going to be different. Some people are going to be nice. Some people might be not so nice. Some people are going to have very different experiences, but that doesn't mean that we should really discount any of them or lay an overall judgment on all of them and say, you can't trust going there specifically because everyone's going to be trying to grab at you. Which I'm not trying to say the commenters were really saying that. They were talking about their specific experiences. And that's what I think we have to keep in mind when we're talking about a topic this tough to get a grasp on. And that kind of also bleeds over to the cultural and religious conversations that I was talking about. I think what happens is we're all looking to understand this event, and then we start applying our personal feelings and experience to it. And in some cases, there might be prejudices in that information that starts coming out. Is that really going to help us figure out what happened in this case? I personally don't know. I mean, if she was targeted by someone, we're talking a very specific group of people. Would they happen to be of one particular religion or live in one particular country? Certainly. But does that mean that all of a sudden everyone in that religion or everyone in that country is just as bad? I don't believe that for a second. So just know I was really proud of how many of you handled some of those comments. I know some of you got into it, tried to help the person see where their prejudice might be a little overarching. I know for some of the kind of more ridiculous comments I saw, in most cases, you guys just completely ignored them, which I really appreciate because it's one thing if someone makes a comment and it's just one little comment in the middle of this thread and their point is, maybe prejudiced or not very popular. It's another thing when all of a sudden that turns into a whole conversation chain and it turns into an argument and then there's name calling and all. And you'll see whenever it happens, it always boils out the same way. I have this idea, you have that idea. Sometimes people will bat it back and forth and you'll get one of them that goes, oh, no, I understand what you're saying. And yeah, I was incorrect. Other times it will battle back and forth and it'll get to the point, you're stupid. No, you're stupid. I can't believe you said this. You misspelled that word. And it just completely evolves into something that is just way off the topic and not helpful to anyone. And it did happen a few times in this thread, but I have to say overall, I was very happy with the intent of everyone that was commenting, really trying to help others understand this case, which is really tough because you've got a language barrier and all kinds of other stuff going on here. So, it's BrainScratch. We don't talk about the easy stuff. All right. Starting off with the first comment, I believe it's from Ryuk. Thank you for making this video. I'm from Poland, and it's a pretty big case here. We are quite distrustful towards Arab countries and Islam. There was never any terrorist attack here, and we are used to feeling safe, whether it's in Poland or foreign resorts. That's why people here get so upset when something happens to one of our citizens. And that's kind of that's a comment that I wanted to include here, just to be clear about we have cultural issues that are knocking heads here. It's funny because when I look at that, in a way, it reminds me of what's going on here in the U.S. I mean, look, we're literally working on building a wall between us and a neighboring country right now. I mean, there's this weird thing that I think just as people, we all go through, where sometimes we don't trust our neighbors. We don't trust other religions or cultures that we don't understand very well. And it seems to me that this comment and this case in particular is just highlighting that. Ryuk, you're not a whole lot different from people here in the U.S., and I'm sure there's people in Asia, and there's people all over the world that have trouble trusting others. And maybe there's good reasons for that, maybe there isn't, but it just reminds me that we're all human and we're all kind of feeling the same thing. Also, Ryuk tried to help me with the pronunciation, so I'm hoping that Juk is proper. If it's not, I'm sure you guys will tell me about it. Here's a message from the Magdalena Juk Foundation. Hi there, I contacted you beforehand. Have to correct you on certain things. Magdalena never said that something has been added to her drink, like a date rape pill. I also heard this from Dionysus. He actually reached back out to me and gave me an update that apparently the news article that had reported that, I don't know if they've done a retraction, but he was saying that it was found out that that information was not accurate. So that is another condition we have to change in this. But it really comes down to toxicology results, which we're still waiting for. And if the comments you guys are talking about, where there might have been a blood transfusion, is true, is that going to modify the outcome of those toxicology results or not? I'm not sure that they only use blood for those results. I don't know. Maybe if there are other tests they can conduct on other parts of the body, I would think like the kidneys or something, that they might be able to catch that, but I'm really not certain. Christy Groves, God, this is insane. Never travel alone, I guess. This poor woman. And under that, we have Completer Girl. Hope I'm saying that right. Women should never be afraid to travel alone. I've covered 25 countries alone. I've never had an issue, thank God, but in unsafe countries, I just had to be extra vigilant and safe. And I think this is one of the most important aspects of discussing this case and reviewing this case. I agree with Completer Girl. I don't think anyone should be afraid to travel alone just because you happen to be a woman, but you do have to sometimes be extra safe. You should try to account for that wherever you can. It's a really important part of this conversation, and I don't want it to get overshadowed. So that's why I wanted to pull this in here. There are many women that travel alone and have no issue, and then you have a story like this pop up. But once again, does that mean that we apply some overarching mentality to, well, then all women should not be able to travel alone? I think that is going too far, and it's kind of giving into the fear. It's kind of, in a way, it's giving into the terrorism of stories like this. If they modify our action to the point where we're not able to even go somewhere to enjoy ourselves, is that really this free, open world that I think a lot of us want in terms of our existence, our short time on this earth? I really don't know. Audrey Aris, by the way, is it possible to resell tickets to people with different names on the same day? I'm not a frequent flyer, so it may be, but I thought you had to give your passport number at least 48 hours before for them to check that you were not a flight risk, terrorist, etc. And quite honestly, I think that is a brilliant point. I was asking my wife about it after I put up the original episode, and she was kind of the same mindset that I was, that it wouldn't really work. You wouldn't be able to just sell your ticket within 4 hours and hand it over to someone else. At least here in the US, our names are printed on the tickets. It's a very specific thing. I think, with maybe a few days notice, you might be able to do it. But on this trip, you're not just talking about a flight ticket, you're talking about a hotel reservation and transportation and all this other stuff. So I think that it would probably take a few days of coordination to make that happen. Ghost NR9 replied, "It would not be possible, in my opinion. The names would have to be changed on the tickets, in the travel agency documents, contracts, hotel reservations in Egypt. Nah, definitely not possible." Now, what that question is really pointing towards is Marcus's story. Is it really true? Was it really his intent? Did he literally just put up that post because he wanted to make it look like he was planning on going on that trip? I even mentioned in the episode last week that there was supposedly a story of someone that tried to buy the tickets and then was denied. Marcus wouldn't basically sell them to him. It does raise some very interesting questions, but to your point, I don't think he could have sold those tickets that quickly. I believe it is Peter 123K. Marcus has a German ID. It's very important information because German members can go to Egypt only with the ID. They don't need passports. Moreover, Magdalena wasn't in Egypt for the first time. She was there a couple times, so Paris syndrome wasn't a problem. It's interesting. I saw several comments about this theory, and we're not sure if he has a German ID or not. I can't find any source to really point that out. And in terms of Magda being in Egypt before, I only saw other comments from you guys where it seemed like some of you believed that she had traveled there before. Once again, I don't have good sources on this. Very, very tough. Trying to investigate this stuff when I can't find decent sources. And even if I do find articles and I can get through the translation aspect, culturally, I don't know about those publications. I don't know if they're trustworthy. I don't know if they're being manipulated by government issues or political issues or commercial issues. It's very hard. It's taken me practically a lifetime just to understand the pressures and tensions that happen within media just in this country. So for me to say that I understand that world round, certainly not true. Devil in her heart. I'm Polish. And right now, the investigators are checking if Magda's boyfriend and some other people weren't connected to a different mysterious suicide of a young woman, Karolina Kazarowska. They were all her friends as well as Magda's. They reopened her closed case. Strange, definitely strange. The research that was sent to me originally by Dionysus, I hope I'm saying that right, did include part of this story, but the connection to it I felt like was a little too loose. I know that we're talking about a circle of friends. Some people say that the person that kind of connects them, that his name popped up on the phone during the video segment. So, is it possible? I think it's possible. I think they should look into it, but I also see a trend, this is just my personal experience since I started doing these shows, where people looking into these cases will sometimes try to see these trends, and they will sometimes say, hey, this reminds me of that other case. I wonder if they're connected. So I'm just looking for a bit stronger information to tie those cases together before I really dive into that theory too much. Brita Growl Chi. I hope I'm saying that right. Hi, good video. What you did not cover, original video with Magda, set the time to 8 minutes. Marcus puts his finger on the phone, denying us to see what is happening with him. 1 to 2 seconds later, Magda looks like bursting into tears and looks back. Also, he tilts the phone, making it kind of hard to see Magda's reaction. What happened during that few seconds? I actually do have a video clip of that, which we can watch together here. And by the way, I have no idea how to say this channel's name, but if you do speak Polish, this channel is covering this case the most in depth from what I can tell. So you might want to check out this channel as well. But here is some video of the thumb. You'll see that should be the box with Marcus's face up here. And his thumb goes and kind of Now, I don't know if he's literally covering it. Like, I don't think he's touching the screen, but it does seem like he's blocking it. And here he kind of turns the phone away, and she has a reaction where she walks away. So some people are thinking that he might have been blocking the camera from seeing the little picture of him because he was passing some type of sign to her or something like that, perhaps some type of threatening sign, and that's why she had that reaction and she kind of walked away, and he kind of tilted the phone away a little bit. I'm really not sure. It's really hard to tell. It could just be that his thumb came up and he wasn't thinking about it. If I was on the phone with my wife in a situation like that, I don't know that I'd be thinking about what's best for the camera that's trying to film the interaction that we're having at that moment. Also, there's a lot of people that are somewhat critical of how he's talking to her, how calm he seems. Some people are thinking that he might have been trying to get her to say something specific that would have cleared him of being involved in this. So it's just another theory to put out there. Mary 21st has a very good question. If she was being raped, why would they then take her to the airport? Why would they call her husband? Why would they take her to the hospital? It's not her husband, it's her boyfriend. And from what I'm seeing, I think they've only been together for a handful, like maybe 3 months or something. But I do think it is a really, really good question. And that's one thing in the comment thread that I was noticing is that most people are probably feeling a bit like I am, that something is definitely off here and something happened to her. And sometimes it's hard to flip your head on that and say, okay, if this is something that's just not normal, but if this isn't what I'm assuming, then what other information supports that? And this definitely supports that. Why are these guys, they take her, first of all, it seems like they're watching her while she's in the hotel. We know that they get her to the hospital on 2 occasions. We know that they tried to arrange for a flight and get her on the flight, and they can't get her on the flight, and they wind up taking her back. She's basically got a guy that's chauffeuring her all over the place. That in itself could be suspicious in one regard, but if this was someone that was really trying to be helpful to her, I do think it's something that we have to consider also, just to be fair to trying to find the truth in this case. Candace Goddard has a reply to it. Perhaps they didn't rape her, but gave her a drug to facilitate rape, and her mental unraveling was a result of those drugs. They might have taken her to the hospital because she was unmanageable and therefore useless for their purposes. Why would someone on holiday only be allowed to use the tour guide's or whatever he was phone? She has no credit. And I know there was several other commenters that were mentioning, maybe she didn't have roaming or something along those lines. One thing we do have is it's very clear that at least Marcus's expectation was that if she had her phone on, he should be able to contact her. And quite honestly, at that point, are you going to care about if you have a roaming plan or not? Who cares what the phone bill is if you're in that kind of distress? So I don't know if, really trying to find an explanation for why it was the tour guide or the travel agent, I guess he would be called, why it was his phone being used for all this communication. I really have no idea. That is a very interesting question in this case. I don't even know how to get this name wrong. I don't know if it's Terry or a Tire, Tekax. But I did want to thank them because they have included a lot of translations in the comment thread. They're being very helpful trying to help other people understand the case, and I really appreciate that. Because it could be their alibi. And Marcus is not Magda's husband, which we pointed out. Marcus knew that resident before Magda bought the trip. I'm not sure. I keep seeing resident. I don't know if you guys, if in Polish, if the translation for that for us is employee. I assumed that it was. And at some point, people are even saying in what I was translating that I was getting it wrong, that I was saying employee, but it really was resident. The way I'm seeing it used is they're saying that some people are a resident of the hotel or a resident of this company. So to me, I'm thinking that's employee, but I could be wrong on that. If you have any better insight on that, please let me know. But he is pointing out that basically Marcus knew Mahmoud, I believe is the name, if I recall correctly, before Magda had bought the trip. They were on Facebook. They were Facebook friends for a really long time. And Marcus says that buying that trip was a surprise for him. Such a coincidence for Magda to buy a trip to Egypt exactly to the hotel where that resident works. That is pretty interesting. That is pretty interesting. Is it impossible? I wouldn't say it's necessarily impossible. Magda might have known about this friendship. She might have known that this was a buddy of Marcus's. Maybe she thought that if she arranged it through him, that she would be getting some kind of deal on the travel. I don't think it's impossible, but it is something to look into. Daria Laskowska, hope I'm saying that right. When she pulls back from the camera after pointing to the letter M, someone responded to her in Polish with foreign accent. Magda, I thought you are going to talk only about hospital. And I have heard this from several people. There are people that are trying to translate the conversation that's going on in the background. There are other people that say at one point that Magda seems to say, I have been raped under her breath. I've watched the video and I don't speak the language, so it's really hard for me to confirm if that is indeed happening. But I'm hearing it from enough of you, and I believe there's some publications talking about this specific quote, that after she says M, that the person behind the camera is saying, Magda, I thought you were only going to talk about the hospital. So once again, a very interesting piece to this puzzle that really points towards the direction of something odd is going on here. Summer Ellison, I think you're reading into what the nurse did with the blinds a little too much. I work in a hospital, and when we have to deal with combative patients, we shut the doors and sometimes the blinds shades. We do it so other patients aren't frightened or disturbed. It also helps the combative patients feel safe. I think the guy doing the weird poses was definitely trying to obstruct the camera, though. Really good feedback. I appreciate you taking the time to post that, Summer. Neural mute. I was watching those men who weren't wearing scrubs very carefully too. From my own experiences with psych patients and all the people who care for them, those men were behaving like they had absolutely zero understanding of how to handle someone in crisis. It's like handling a wounded animal. If you make any sudden move that could be read as aggression, they'll lash out in pain. These guys' body language was very proprietary, full of dominance and possessive gestures toward her. I wish like hell we knew what was being said in that hallway and by whom. I completely agree. The body language in that bothers me. It doesn't seem like they are trying to be helpful, but more trying to dominate, just really echoing all your points. Oh, and about using towels as restraints, it's fairly commonly done when medical restraints aren't available because they're too thick and soft for a patient to hurt themselves with. Once again, I love doing this type of work because my episode is just the start of the conversation and we get excellent feedback from people that have better information. So thank you guys so much for kicking that in. Okay, from Abelina, she's saying, this is one of the theories I found online. It's translated from Polish, so don't quote me. Well, I'm kind of quoting you, but I'll also quote that you're quoting something else. I have edited it because some things cannot be translated. I'm not the author of this text. Here it goes. My humble opinion of the probable course of events connected with this tragedy was as follows. Firstly, this story about the joint departure of Magda with her boyfriend Marcus can be put between fairy tales. I guess they're trying to say it doesn't seem true. In my opinion, the purpose of this trip was to work as an escort, and it was a deal between Marcus and his buddies and resident Mahmoud Chiari and his Arabian flock. I don't think I need to go into the rest of this. I've kind of mentioned other aspects of this story before, but I did bump into a publication that was talking about some type of private investigators that were looking into this, and they were assuming the same thing, that basically she was going there to specifically work as an escort, and it seems like something went wrong about that. I can't find information to confirm or deny it, but I do just want to point it out. I do want to call it out as being one potential theory. There is also some talk about the fact that she knew how to pole dance, but I know, especially here in the U.S., there are numerous workout classes that use pole dancing for exercise. So I can't really say that there's anything all that odd about that happening in that case. And from Joanna F., her parents called Polish embassy, but they kept sending them away to the travel agent. I'm not going to lie, her BF acted very suspicious in the video, and his name was mentioned with another case from a year ago, but it's not proven. Also, I can't imagine being so calm while my loved one is telling me something is wrong, especially seeing her in the state she is in the video. I totally agree. Totally agree. I think I'd be asking a lot more questions about why can't you talk instead of just talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. I would be asking what's going on there right now. What are you afraid of where you're standing? And I mean, maybe that's just me personally, but I don't see him trying to understand why she's having such trouble communicating, just that he is acknowledging that she's having trouble communicating. It's all very shady, but at the same time, we can't say that she went there to work or was sold because, again, it's not proven. Very well said, Joanna. I think it's best to wait for the end of the investigation and last results. That's if we find out what actually happened. But making assumptions or judging her is the last thing she deserves. In the end, no one of us knew her in person, so she deserves respect like any other person. Totally agree. Extremely well said. And that's why I wanted this to be one of the last comments that I ended this video on. Mark Clark, it would be foolish to judge a nation and culture according to biased prejudice. There are good people and bad people within every nation, every country, all around the planet. Reading a lot of comments here towards Polish or Egyptian nation and its people, I'm finding a lot of generalizations, and I think it's very wrong. Criminals exist everywhere, and we shall not judge whole nations according to one. There's a lot of misconceptions within understanding of other cultures and other nations caused by meaningless prejudice. For me, personally, there are good people everywhere as well as those not as good. Once again, extremely well said, and that's why I really wanted to end the video with a couple of very balanced comments that maybe will give us all a little more reflection as we look into this case and try to understand it a bit deeper. It's tragic. I'm waiting for more information. I'm literally looking for it day after day. It's coming out like a trickle in this case. And once again, it's just kind of frustrating because I don't know who to trust in terms of these media sources. So I'm looking to you guys. And, when we do get the autopsy results, I'm probably going to do the same type of thing where I'm looking back through your comments to get a better understanding of it, because with the cultural differences, the language differences, there are a lot of barriers trying to understand this case. And I hope that all of you out there will do your best to keep your minds open, keep your hearts open while you're looking into this. Remember, these are real people. These are real lives that we're talking about. Certainly there are lessons for all of us to learn when we look into something like this. For some of us, that lesson might be, hey, am I really prejudiced? Is there something going on with me that I need to check out? For others of us, that might be, hey, that trip that I was planning on taking alone, maybe I need to make sure that I understand the types of taxis I'm taking, the resort that I'm staying at. Maybe I should check some reviews there specifically about its safety. That's why I do think it's so important that we do talk about these cases and share this in the way that we do here. So I want to thank everyone that commented that I used, and everyone else that commented, regardless of how popular your comment might have been. It just really shows that there are a lot of people that truly care about this case, and we want to see justice. It's that simple. We want to see justice in this case. And to get to that point, we need to understand it a lot more. We might not be looking at a case where there is justice to be had if it is truly an issue of her harming herself. But even in that, there's things to understand. So Anyway, thank you so much for joining me here on BrainScratch. I will see you again next week here on the Lord and Arts channel. I hope you all have a great weekend, and thank you so much for helping me try to understand all of this. I really, really appreciate it. Take care, everyone.